Daf Yomi Tractate Menachos, page 69, 69a, and just the bottom last line of 68b for context. We're talking about the 2 loaves offering is brought from the grains. It took root prior to the current Omer offering. We're talking about the Omer offering and the 2 loaves. In this scenario, the 2 loaves come from wheat of this year's crop, and yet they are still called the first fruits, despite the fact that the Omer offering also came from wheat, as that wheat, I thought the Omer came from barley. Oh, well, anyway, we'll just skip that part for now and just go to this last line here. In this manner, Rabbah has attempted to prove that the proper order of the Omer offering, followed by the 2 loaves, is necessary to permit the new grain for use in meal offerings. The Gemara rejects the proof. Do you hold? Okay, so now we're on 69a, top of the page. Misaber, Bikurim is the word. Bikurim, the pera kamrinan, the mizbeach kamrinan, ve'achale mizbeach miperida shato. That when we say the 2 loaves must come from the first fruits, the verse is referring to the new fruit crop grown this year. This is not so. Rather, we say that the 2 loaves must come from the first fruits sacrificed upon the altar this year. Therefore, even in Rabbah's case, the 2 loaves cannot come from wheat, as the altar had already consumed from the fruit, meaning the wheat used for the Omer offering this year. I always thought that why did I think that the Omer was barley? Okay, so maybe the wheat used for the Omer offering this year. Okay, by Rabbah she'elechem hanatza sharia or hanatza sharia my hanato ile mahanatza de peri bechanata de peri hashtash rosh sharia hanatza bechanata miboy. Rami Bar Chama raises a dilemma with regard to the 2 loaves that permit the bringing of first fruit. Are all fruit that are budding at the time of the sacrifice permitted, or are only fruit that has gone through formation permitted? The Gemara asks, what is meant here by budding, and what is meant of formation? What is the meaning of formation? If we say that this is referring to the budding of the fruit and the formation of the fruit, this is difficult. Now, that this is taught in 70a, that even in the case of the grain taking root prior to the bringing of the 2 loaves, that grain is permitted by their sacrifice. It is necessary to discuss the budding or formation of fruit, which corresponds to a latter stage than the taking root of grain. Ela hanatza de ala v'chanata de ala mihavi hashrasha oila teiku. The Gemara answers, rather, Rami Bar Chama is referring to the budding of a fruit tree's leaf and the formation of a fruit tree's leaf. The question is whether the budding of the fruit tree's leaves is like the taking root of grain, and therefore all the tree's fruit is permitted by the 2 loaves, or whether this budding is not similar to the taking of root of grain, and therefore the tree's fruit is not permitted by the 2 loaves. The Gemara concludes, the dilemma shall stand unresolved. Teku. And let's see if we can find the Teku here. Here he is. Yep. See here? Menachot 69a. What do you know? This was the Teiku of Thursday, February 19th. This is really neat. The 245th Teiku in the Babylonian Talmud. Okay. I can't say I remember doing it, but it's recorded, so there it is. Okay. Boy Rava Bar Rav Hanan Chitin Shezahon Rikalka Oimer Matiron Oy Oimer Matiron Hechidami I Dashrush Tenina Ilo de Ashrush Tenina. Rava Bar Rav Hanan raises a dilemma with regard to wheat kernels that one sowed in the ground. Does the bringing of the Omer offering permit them to be eaten, or does the Omer not permit them in consumption? The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances if this is referring to a case where the wheat kernel has already taken root prior to the bringing of the Omer offering? We already learned this in a Mishnah. If it's referring to a case where the wheat stalk has yet taken root, we already learned this in the Mishnah as well. Ditznan im heshrishu kozim la'omer omer matiran v'im lav asurin ad shiavo omer haba. The Gemara cites the source for this claim. As we learned in the Mishnah 70a, if crops took root before the sacrifice of the Omer offering, the Omer permits them to be eaten. And if not, meaning they took root only after the sacrifice of the Omer offering, they are prohibited until the next Omer is sacrificed the following year. Lo sricha dechat din hu vizarin hu kodim leomer yasa oimer v'chalif alayu v'kam boyelei mahur lenak kote umechal minayu keman dishadayo b'chado damyo u'sherinu oimer oidima b'telehu gabiaro. The Gemara explains no. Rava Bar Rav Hanan's dilemma is necessary only in the case where one reaped grain and sowed it again prior to the Omer, and the time of the Omer arrived and passed while the grain was in the ground, but before it had taken root. And this is the dilemma that he raises. What is the halacha in such a case? Is it permitted to take these kernels and eat from them? Is their halachic status considered like that of kernels cast into a jug, meaning disconnected from the ground, and consequently the sacrifice of the Omer offering renders their consumption permitted? Or perhaps he subordinated them to the ground, in which case their halachic status is that of seeds that did not take root and are therefore prohibited. Yesh lahen no, ein lahen no. Rava Bar Rav Hanan raises another dilemma with regard to grains that were reaped and then sowed again. Does the halacha of exploitation apply to them in a case of disparity of 1/6 between their sale price and their market value, which would render the exploiter obligated to refund the difference between the purchase price and the market value? Or does the halacha of exploitation not apply to them? Since the halachot of exploitation apply only to movable property, not to land, this matter depends on whether these grains are considered like detached movable property or whether they have been subordinated to the land. Hechidami ilemed amalei shadaiba shita ve aso sahadi awe delo shada be ba el khamisha גם רבה כל דבר שמשקל של בניין אפילו פחות מחתונה חויזל. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances if we say that one has said, I sowed 6 kav of grain in the field, and witnesses came and said that he sowed only 5 kav in it? That is difficult. But doesn't Rava say, with regard to any item that is otherwise subject to the halachot of exploitation, and it is sold by measure, or by weight, or by number, even if the disparity was less than the measure of exploitation in the transaction is reversed. A disparity of 1/6 between the value of an item and its price constitutes exploitation only in cases where there is room for error in assessing the value of an item. In a case where the sale item is easily quantifiable, any deviation from the designated quantity results in a nullification of the transaction, even if the sale item in question is subordinate to the ground. Ela damale shadai ba kidbaila baila yasusadi amri de lo shadabe kidbaila yesh lehen oino dikheman shadia bkhadu de mayo yesh lehen oino oidilma batilu ligabi aro. Rather, it is a case where the seller said, I cast kernels in the field as required, without quantifying the measure of the kernels that he cast, and witnesses came and said that he did not cast kernels in the field as required. Are they subject to the halachot of exploitation? As the halachic status of these kernels is like that of kernels cast into a jug, and they are subject to the halachot of exploitation, or perhaps the laborer subordinated them to the ground, in which case they have the status of land, which is not subject to the halachot of exploitation. Nishbain alehen o ein nishbain alehen kidishayo echal damyo uch italtele damu nishbain alehen o dilma batelhu agav aro ichi mikal koi damu ve'ein nishbain alehen teku. Speed 246, Teku. Rava bar Rav Hanan raises yet another dilemma with regard to grains that were reaped and sowed again. The halacha is that one does not take oaths with regards to claims on land. Consequently, if one admitted to part of a claim with regard to such grain, which generally obligates him in an oath, does he take an oath with regard to the kernels, or does he not take an oath with regard to the kernels? Is there a halachic status like that of kernels cast into a jug, and they are like movable property, and one takes an oath with regard to them, or perhaps he subordinated them to the ground, and they are like land, and one does not take an oath with regard to them? The Gemara concludes, Teku, the dilemma shall stand resolved until the coming of Messiah. Bayrami Bachama Chitin Shviglali Bako, Soyrim Shviglali Behema Mahu Lemai Ilim Elizabeth Clintonina Chitin Shibri Bakar Soyrin Shviglali Behema Chishivale Nachilo Ein Metamet Tumas Achalin Lek Tan Lechila. Okay. Rami Barchon raises another dilemma with regard to wheat kernels that are found in the dung of cattle, or barley kernels found in the dung of an animal. What's the halacha? The Gemara asks, with regard to what issue was this dilemma raised? If we say that it was regard to their capacity to become susceptible to the ritual impurity of food. We already learned this in Bright, as it is taught. If one found wheat kernels in the dung of cattle, or barley kernels in the dung of animals, they do not become susceptible to the ritual impurity of food. But if you collected them for eating, they do become susceptible to ritual impurity of food. The Gemara provides another suggestion, rather perhaps Rabbi Barchaman's dilemma is referring to the use of these kernels for meal offerings. The Gemara rejects this. It is obvious that they may not be used for meal offerings, as it is written with regard to those who offer inferior items to the temple. Present it now to your governor. Will he be pleased with you, or show you favor, says the Lord of Hosts? Malachi 1:8. Any item that would not feel comfortable bringing to a governor, or local ruler may certainly not be brought into the temple. Lo yitzricha dinaktinu v'zarinu kom b'yer la'soye menachot minayu mai mishum de meususahu v'chivan zarinu azda meususayu the meususayu parentheses meususayu brackets oi dilma v'shum kechi shusahu v'hashtanami kechu shateku. This is Teku 247. The Gemara explains, no, it is necessary to raise this lemon in a case where one collected these kernels and sowed them in the ground, and now he wants to bring meal offerings from them. What is the halacha? Is the reason one may not use them initially for meal offerings because they are disgusting, and since he sowed them again, their disgusting qualities left, or perhaps they were initially disqualified because they are considered weakened after having been digested by an animal? And if so, even the grains that have now grown after they were replanted are also weakened, like the kernels that gave rise to them. The Gemara concludes this lemma shall also stand resolved. Okay? Rav Chama raises yet another lemma. In the case of an elephant that swallowed an Egyptian wicker basket and excreted it intact along with its waste, what's the halacha? The Gemara asks, with regard to what matter was this dilemma raised? Ilim levato tumasa tanina kol kehon yordin lidei tumasa b'machshave ve'eno ilim tumasa ela b'shinu ma'aseh. If we say that this dilemma was raised with regard to a case where the wicker basket was ritually impure, and the question is if its ritual impurity is nullified by the elephant swallowing it. We already learned in the Mishnah in Caleb 25:9, all vessels descend into their state of ritual impurity by means of thought. Although an unfinished vessel cannot become ritually impure, if the craftsman decided not to finish it, it immediately assumes the halachic status of a completed vessel and can become ritually impure, but they ascend from their state of ritual impurity only by means of a change resulting from an action. A ritually impure vessel, once it undergoes physical change, is no longer ritually impure. Therefore, as the wicker basket remained intact without physical change, it is clear that it remains ritually impure. Loi tzricha debala hutzin ve'agdinu kefifa mitris mihavi equal havile. The Gemara answers, no, it is necessary to raise this lemon in the case where the elephant had swallowed ends of palm leaves whole, and after the leaves were excreted, one made them into an Egyptian wicker basket. The lemon is as follows. Is this considered digestion? And therefore the basket prepared from the leaves is like dung vessels and like earth vessels. Top of 69b. Kechlei galalim klei adama ein mekabel tuma. De amar mar klei avanim klei galalim dmei adama ein mekabel tuma v'lo medivrei Torah v'lo medivrei Sofer or idima lo havi ikulei. Oh, so if you gave palm leaves and then the elephant poops it out, do these palm leaves, is it considered dung, and can you make a wicker basket with it, and then this wicker basket will never become impure because it's dung. It's technically dung. Like dung vessels and earth vessels, and these are not susceptible to ritual impurity. As the Master said, stone vessels and dung vessels and earth vessels are not susceptible to ritual impurity, neither by Torah law nor by rabbinic law. Or perhaps this is not considered digestion, as the palm leaves remained intact, and therefore the vessel prepared from them is susceptible to ritual impurity like any other wooden vessel. Interesting. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll continue with the next daf.